So we've just completed 2.2. We're now going back to 2.1. Thames Community Board grant allocation of funding. We had an introduction from Road. Would you like to add anything further at this point?
Just to summarise the three options today. Option one is to invest in high priority projects and initiatives. There are 9 in the group, and it's a mix of projects, events, and equipment. Option 2 is to invest in the medium priority initiatives and projects. There are 10 in the group, and it's a mix of events, projects, and services. And option 3 is invest in low priority initiatives and projects. There are 8 in the group.
Okay, we'll open up some discussion at points. I think the best way to progress this is we've had a recommendation, which has been, a well-founded recommendation with the analysis and the criteria. And I guess everybody's understood that criteria and the analysis. And whilst there might not be perfection in relationship to some of the outcomes, whether that be council outcomes that are used or community outcomes that are being used at this stage, they're subject to review over the next 6 months or 7 months. In some areas, there are some questions relating to some community outcome views, but in general, I feel we're really heading in a very strong direction, and what's being used has made some good decisions in relationship to this allocation. So, firstly of all, we want to find out from each member whether they agree with the allocation that's been recommended or whether there's security action relating to it. I think the best way to approach it is to around every board member, try and understand just whether they're happy with what's been allocated as it is, or whether in fact there's some points that need to be discussed in relationship to any one of those applications. So is that a fair process for everybody? Do you think that's a good way of doing it? Yep, okay. And so I'll let you, will I go around the table one by one, or do you want me to just wait for you to put your hand up? I think I'll wait just for you to put your hand up and say, these are the questions that we're going to bring into the table. So we'll keep all those questions from you now. So we've got them all in our mind, there are 3 or 4 of them, and then we'll go from there and discuss them. So
this around, are we going to start from the top and go down, or are we just going to throw it in wherever?
throw it in wherever you like, I think is the best way.
Can we just talk about option 1 first? And then option 2.
Okay. Well, I'll be led by you, Ray, I'll let you, yeah.
We're not going to talk about the actual applications yet, are we? It's the process.
Well, what I recommend is option. So option 1 is a group, and that group has the highest number of outcomes. And then option 2 is another group that has medium level outcomes. And so the idea is that we maximise the outcomes.
Yep.
Today.
Right. Okay, start with you, Peter. Yeah.
So I think I've got 3 comments. So firstly, Rose, I think you've done an outstanding job in all that analysis, and it just saves a huge amount of work and debate for us, so I appreciate that. Secondly, the purpose of this report is to allocate grants to community groups from the Thames Community Board to encourage and support local community services, etc., etc. I have a view that we should be allocating grants to community groups, not to businesses. And I think that in here we have a number of businesses that have applied for grants. My view is that they're businesses, and that's a business expense for an individual business. So that's where I have a general challenge with a number of the things. And the third comment I'd like to make is I love the idea of seeing something big happen. And that's why the very first one sort of grabbed my attention. You kind of think, oh, it's kind of, you can point to it, and look at it, and you can write on it, and sort of say, that's happening because of the community got behind it. So it's kind of, I love the idea of a big thing. That's not to say that little small things aren't important, but I do love the idea of a big thing. So I just want to make those general comments at the outset.
So thanks, Peter. And some of those business questions might be alleviated by looking behind those and sort of saying, is there a relatively good in relationship to what you're funding, not necessarily the business itself. So, yeah, but anyway, I mean, that's good points you've taken.
So through the chair, each applicant is a not-for-profit organisation. So it might appear like it's a business, but when I looked at his data, they're not-for-profit entities, all of them.
Yeah.
No businesses.
Sorry, could you just say that again?
They're all not-for-profit entities. There are no businesses. They're all either a society or a charity.
So there's no businesses, they're all non-for-profit organisations that have made entities.
And in regard to the second point, the third point, the project ranked the highest. The Big Bang project ranked the highest.
Yep. Right, thanks, Peter. That's good stuff, but because some of them sort of associated in some way.
For me, we're in a process. I could debate many of them. I have personal opinion. I have all kinds of criteria. And I think if we started to do that, well, we're not acknowledging the work that's been done back on the criteria. So I'm loath to say about particular ones because there's lots of them that I would have done differently. So that's where I'm sitting, and there's nothing that's screaming at me like this.
Wrong.
And if we go by criteria, there are ones in option 3 that I don't quite understand how come they didn't match, and then we'll get it.
Excellent, thank you. No, I think that's a little bit of my persuasion as well. So, Martin, do you want to go?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, Cheryl, Ariana. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I guess when I looked at these, I just, according to the criteria, we've done a huge amount of work, Rose. I see one group is saying a recommended grant of $20,000, and then one of the other groups don't. And yet I think they're all so important. And yeah, you know, I know you said just look at the criteria, Sally, but I really feel that if we go with just that criteria, that there's going to be some very good groups that are going to miss out. And they're the ongoing groups, and you know, they're the real community groups for me. So I've just got a bit of disquiet about that. Right.
So maybe the question there is, as we review through some of those questions through to the next year, that's a really good opportunity rather than debate it today in terms of the criteria. That's what exists. And some of those considerations and reflections that you feel where there could be a little bit more equitable distribution. And that'll be driven by that criteria to review through to February next year.
Or could those that miss out under this criteria, and we feel strongly that they should get something, could that come under the discretionary fund?
Well, it could do, it just depends what it is. It's only $20,000 on the isn't it?
But it's not a lot that they're asking either.
But I will go back to the discussion we had when I first started.
Yeah.
And I took into a report from self-paying funding, and Sheree made the very strong point that it wasn't equitable. It wasn't an equitable process. So you did not allocate that money to float funding. It was $1,300.
Yeah.
But the same point. Yeah.
Okay, so whether you want to highlight in particular that that application in the field has missed out. I'm not too sure. Maybe if you just let us know who that is.
Okay.
Cheryl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Thames Tumble group.
Right, and there,
And
They just fell below the line, that's all. They scored lower than the next.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you on the Tumble Hop, Cheryl, sorry, Aaron's Robin, in that they are quite a good community group. And I think that they deserve supporting. And I'm sorry, I didn't want to distract them. My last people.
yeah. Ariana, you got
Yeah.
Robin?
And, you know, we.
Yeah.
I've personally received quite a lot of criticism about favouritism amongst schools and the feeling that some of the schools are missing out when it comes to councils dealing with them. And so to see one of the schools that has been quite visible at Mary's, and this is Monopari, which is my old school, well, I didn't go there, but we had a child there. But to see them receive twice, and to see Thames South and Tumbletops miss out doesn't sit well with me in terms of equality.
That's the point.
Yeah.
We'll try and throw those into the mix for the final.
So just a comment, so I don't have any of that background. I'm coming in with a
Yes.
clean
Yep.
slate.
Which is
So
the,
I've just used that process and that was the grant from the community board since 2015. So I think the question for our discussion as we review the grant policy later on in the year is dependency something that you want to have?
Martin?
Yes, so I just wanted to ask the board to have a little think about application number 24 in Southport. Now, a significant quantity of what they're asking for is children's entertainment. But they're looking to tie that into the mandatory. So, because there has been in the past some disquiet at the end of Santa parades about traffic management and where people go and how you get parents with the children on school floats reunited in a safe environment. And I think Thames South's idea in association with people on Santa parade is that that provides a place for people to take their floats back to unload children. Parents know who the children will be. There will be an event there, and this kind of means the parents have got somewhere to take their kids after the event. But then I struggle with it on the other side because it's a fundraising thing, and we're not supposed to fund. Is that right? We're not supposed to fund things for fundraising. I know in Thames-Coromandel.
Yeah.
It's not in policy.
We're not supposed to.
It's not. As a
So, yeah, so I do really struggle, and I think it's a great idea that they've got, but
How much was there?
yeah, I was going to put that in there for people aware that was the idea, was that it meshed in with the centre rate, or the end of the centre rate.
And that feeds into your discussion about putting around schools, which feeds into the Ministry of Education versus up, and I'm sounding like I'm freaking putting in now, but yeah, right. Yeah, one is hiring category funding.
Through the chair, it's a good point, Sally. It's interesting because I looked at the policy that just says that it included schools, and it doesn't restrict schools from applying. So all schools at the moment have the opportunity to apply.
And it's great to see that we've got 4 schools applying, 4 applications from the school. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it a point that needs to be made there for schools, is whether it's a Ministry of Education responsibility versus community
Yeah.
responsibility.
Yeah.
Whether in fact you can make that distinction visible. It's actually something that our branch should be providing for, the ministry should be doing. That's all I've got.
Yeah, no, absolutely, straight.
Yeah, Martin, just in regard to that, so, yeah, I mean, as Bruce probably knows as well, being on the board of the high school as well, yeah, the ministry will fund things, you know, to a point within the curriculum. And then the ministry says, right, well, you want to do these additional things, like this Pro 8, which is a completely fantastic event. And yeah, at that point, the ministry says, right, well, if that's something extra you want to do, you fund that yourself.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there is an argument that, well, the ministry should be doing that, but yeah, the ministry is quite clear about what they will and won't fund.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a genuine community aspect, the ministry should have responsibility for it. You just got to be mindful of not taking away grant money to other organisations that need it. That's it. Yep.
Can I say that? Sorry. The number 13 is the community centre trust, the money for the driver licence courses, etc. I would completely and unequivocally support that. It's that's really fantastic initiative. Stop young people going into the criminal justice system if they're right about licences. Yeah, I would be 100% supporting that.
Right, okay.
Oh, I think it's really, yeah, I feel quite strongly that tabletops should be in there, with something, because I worry about the viability of tabletops without our support. And as I said, I would like to see all of the schools. At the moment, we've had 3 schools apply, and one is missing out. So ideally, I'd like all of the schools to benefit from our generosity in terms of this fund. Because that's the equitable thing to do, instead of one school receiving 2 and one school receiving none.
Okay, yes, next Robin.
Okay, so I'm just going to speak to 3 that I've got in there that I had questions around. I'm not going to. So I questioned the Copen Bridge Historic and the re-establishment of the Cook Monument. Is it easy to re-establish? That's my first question. The second thing is the Copen Bridge Society want to have bollards. So at what time, or do we know, does this bridge actually belong to the cycle trail? Is it part of the bridge? So it's part of the has it been designated as part of, because there is that bit on the actual main bridge which was a walk cycle.
So that's part of the state highway. All new bridges, and Bruce might be able to comment on this, but my understanding is all new bridges on the state highway, it's a requirement that there's a cycle lane, provision for cycling. But it's not, my understanding is it's not a formal part of the cycling trail.
But
The
the historical
bridge. The new bridge.
But the old bridge is, we're really clear, that belongs, as far as I'm concerned, the Copen Bridge, at this point in time, belongs to that organisation, a deal with them and, and we've always said that our money can't be supporting that organisation because we believe that we have our highway and we cannot afford to be drip feeding into an organisation that's got 5 years, and it must be about 3 years now, to sort out how they're going to make that bridge work. So, and to me, Captain Cook is a whole nother problem in terms of, in this day and age of Aotearoa, whether Captain Cook stands proudly there and gets vandalised with the time with a changing version of what New Zealand looks like and what we celebrate. So that 2,000 easily for me could go, and I can hear Gary Blake listening on the public, could go to Thames Tumbletops and I thought of that, but that wrecks the criteria thing, which Rose has been trying to discipline us, and that's why I haven't got, I can't say Pacific, I only can't say the ocean, which is Martin. We'd all have those issues and we'll end up being here till 5 o'clock. That's the problem. Not staying till 5.
I've got two others, shall I say them? or not?
Yeah.
So that's my first questions around the Cobra Bridge. The second one is the body is the treasure.
The what, sorry?
It's
The body of the
the
treasure.
body of the treasure.
Every body is the treasure trove.
So, while I read it and I understand it, it says quite clearly there are 2 volunteers attempting to find funding to shift to paid roles. So is this what we're doing? Are we paying them to deliver?
We're wanting the outcome. So the outcome is the young people get the skills, the knowledge, they get that. And to get that, we need to contribute to the cost.
But our grants can't be used for wages.
They can't be.
They're not wages.
But it says in there. So did the Cliffs pick that bit up, which says
If they do.
funding?
It's the same with the to fund in the way I pay. You'd like me to say, to get the outcome, we need to pay the fee to get the outcome. Yeah.
Last one is Christmas Wonderland. Funding allocated last year, not uplifted. So what happened to the money?
Well, it didn't get allocated.
It never got allocated, Rose said.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't get allocated, it just disappears into the ether.
It would have, I guess it would have been retained as savings. But what it granted, it was granted formally last August.
So why didn't it come back to the table like money from solar fund?
Good question.
Thank you.
I only just found out.
More questions then.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, thank you. Sure, that's fine.
I think my recollection of the money from the Wonderland was that Donna advised us that it wasn't something that could be reallocated, so it was similar to this whole.
Ruby Jones trying to donate. Something to the long ago. Normally, the normal process is if the whole grant allocated by the end of the financial year, and if there's anything left over, it goes into it will just offset any other expenditure, the over expenditure, and then you can leave in that the whole Thames community, area that will go into retained earnings for Thames.
So through the chair, grants policy states exactly that. So we don't reallocate it, but I was new, it was my first month, and I didn't realise that we didn't reallocate. So I called a report to you, and you didn't reallocate. We retained it as saving.
Yes, and it's got to be subject to an application from the organisation. Specific reasons. Right.
Well, how long does that stay open though? How long is there, how long does it stay open in terms of how much money they've been allocated that they haven't picked up? And at what point do they have to go back to the board to say that they're done?
I went to the AGM, so they had very good reasons why they didn't have that event last year. I went to the AGM earlier this year as an organisation, they are ready for this year. So as far as their accounts, etc., were concerned, they couldn't do it last year, and they are doing it this year.
So through the chair, the financial policy, and well, Donna will be able to reiterate that it's operational funding. So by June 30, if it hasn't been spent, then it flows. And the only way around that under the current policy is for a report to come to the board
To ask
to
them
extend the date. And you started that in April. She's brought a report to you. You extended the date for a cricket group, and I think it was a museum. A museum project that
I know what you're saying. I'm just trying to figure out how long that's going to last. And actually, then the funds deemed retained before we do.
Yeah, so there is
Didn't
a
have an
timeline.
opportunity to maybe actually reallocate. because they had the option to do it.
It's spelled out in their applications, in the application process.
So through the chair processes that the grant is made, policy is we don't reallocate. So if they don't spend their grant, we don't reallocate. The funds are retained as stable. You'll note that in the recommendation for today, I have requested if you support them, there's a couple there that, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, where I've stated that the end date be 30 June 2023 to provide more time for those who have their funding in place and for complete the process. If we had that with Christmas Wonderland, hence Christmas Wonderland, if we had a longer date in the resolution, we could have held it over.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have had some questions relating to the allocation. They're minor ones. One that a feeling around the board that should be allocating the money to them Humble Fox Group. And their application was for $1,680. And also, there's been some questions relating to some allocation in option 1. Sorry, total years. And there were some questions related to everybody at the Treasure Trust. Is that, I got that right, everyone?
And 10 South School.
And the 10 South School, yes, thanks, Martin. And the 10 South School, how much, sorry?
4,000.
4,000.
They have itemised that though.
Yeah,
4,000.
right.
Can I just, as the chair, if there is anything in the guidelines sent out to community organisations about how much is normally given out? Yeah, I just wondered, I thought when we were applying for a community centre, it said something about approximately 5,000.
Right.
And I just think some of these applications are huge, really,
So through
you
the
know,
chair,
for a small amount of money.
that's a good point, and it's something we could consider when we are reviewing. Obviously,
Yeah.
I'll just make a note of it.
Yeah, because otherwise there's some that are going to get a big chunk of it and others are going to miss out.
But I personally get back to Peter's comment too. Sometimes, the first one we can see,
Yeah,
where it's really where we take the one opportunity to be able to assist where, especially where it's being leveraged by other organisations and they've got the ability to get external funding. And for us to have the ability to do something like that is, in my mind, high on the list. So, yeah.
I just want to clarify that because we're talking about those taking it a bit, spreading it around the schools a bit more. Do we, option 24, Team South School, do we have the option to be able to give them any money? As it's for fundraising, is it completely off the table or can we do other?
There's nothing mentioned in the policy about it, so this is something.
Okay, right, I just saw the forward side.
Right.
Bruce has got his.
Yep, Bruce.
Sorry, I'm not looking at that. That's right. Through the chair, there was a question came up before from Jaree about Old Cokie Bridge. So the Old Cokie Bridge is not part of the Harrogate Rail Trail. The Harrogate Rail Trail goes over the New Cokie Bridge. It's not that it's off the place as well. The other thing I'll just throw out here, we thought that decision makers, so I'll just throw this out here. It's these 10 schools in the 10 community ward area. And so just that's something to think of, like, you start handing money out to schools. So Martin's right, literally they're pretty tight on what they hand out. However, the schools are funded by tax from the government. People who pay rates are often paying tax as well. So it's just trying to think that through some of the other people, some of these community groups are asking for money we don't have, they are not funding. So, and based on 10 schools across the area, every year you install stuff. Something to think about when you make decisions, so I just throw that out.
Yes, and whilst I can go with the statement that Rob's put forward, is that if we agreed that we were going to try and make a fair allocation to 10 schools, that I would apply for some funding that's going to exclude all the other communities, especially when they, have the opportunity under the Ministry of Education, whatever, to try and work this thing through. But this doesn't alleviate valid comments like some of the issues that we might wish to fund. But I haven't got the answers for that either, but I do hear the same. You might end up with a situation where you've got to exclude all school.
Well,
Try to accommodate everything.
in this case, we're going to include what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Get a little straight, could I just point it out, it's moot, but on item 22, the cut-off with society, the fundraising event is not September 21, it's April 22. It's just
What?
It's okay.
a detail that I'm not
Sure,
sure
what they put in their application on the game.
Term 21 is gone. It's April 22.
Okay, well, we're hearing some disquiet, is everyone agreeable to the Forestry Bridge funding, given that it's owned by the trust, but under NZTA direction in relationship to?
No.
It's under the trust itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
purely the trust.
Yep, but it's also dependent on their ability to fund the progression of it. Yep.
Do we know, Rose, in their application, that they applied to Currently District Council? But the bridge was originally, it's the boundary between the two.
No, they haven't.
But they're now talking about it being on the side, so I guess it. Okay.
So I go back to my original dilemma of if we start changing things, can we do that? Like if we say we'll cut that out and we'll give them to the tiny tots and we'll cut monetary and give that some of that to themselves. Have we got the right to do that as decision makers today? That's what I'd like.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we do.
But it does compromise the analysis, it sort of says, based on this scientific approach, this is what we come up with, number 110.
Well, can we receive that report at Cheryl here, Ariana? Can we just receive the report and go through these under the old, which ones we think are the most worthy, and then discuss the report at a later date?
No.
Through the chair, I think we need to move on.
The only comment I made through the chair, obviously I stood up on all the community boards. You have to have methodology that you use to try and be better the way you do it, but then there's a level of discretionality that normally comes over the top. So what I would say, my advice to you is you totally have the right to sit here and tweak and work that through to try and get what you think is the best result. So that's my advice to you, that's what the other boards, that's how they generally work it. It does make it a little bit, you've got to try and keep up with what you're doing, so when you do a spreadsheet, so you say, okay, we're not going to get $1,000, we're going to get $750, and I think it's actually the outcome.
So I would move that because I think that giving tiny bits of money to the Trophy Trust is unfair to them and to our ratepayers, that we put, and that they were close to where the tiny plots were, that we use that money to pay the tiny plots, whatever they applied for. Is that a goer on the board?
Yeah.
You want me to put it on the board or?
No,
Oh, we got it right.
I just have a comment in terms of the criteria that we've got 8, each of those has been forward, which is useful. So the total score of 8, the highest scoring is 5 out of 8. So, sorry, out of 8, the other one. So there's actually not a lot in it. It's not like somebody's getting 99% and somebody's getting 10%. We're actually just talking quite
quite a small amount of different how they fit into criteria, how they don't fit into our criteria. Yes, I just want that to be quite mindful.
Yes, Rob. That's a good point, yeah. Yes, Peter.
Just how the recommended grant in many cases matches what the funds were requested. In some cases, it doesn't. How did you make that change?
I think for Business Wonderland, so I didn't allocate all the funding that they required. They requested 8,000. Christmas Wonderland. Let me just have a look at it.
They requested 8,500.
Yeah, so here's the school board hire, what was it, 4,000 and around 4,000. Let's find it. Yeah. The high quote was 4,575 to hire the centre. And then there's expenses that they have to actually deliver. And the grant reflects that. So it's not the total that they applied for, which was 8,537. The rest of them are initiatives like the driver's license, funding, kindergarten, and there, as I mentioned before, there's 4 projects, and across options 1 and 2. And I've explained that 3 of them are funded at 33% of the total cost, and 1 at 25% of the total cost.
Right. So I think we're getting there. I think between the board, what we're really saying is that we prefer to allocate funding under the cost, because under the criteria, it's very minor in relationship to the degree of movement in our criteria, and that we would like to reallocate the Forestry Bridge money, and our decision to defer that because it's a little bit, I'm not quite sure, and that's the expression of the board in terms of what they'd like to see happen. So we've got $1,680 for number of, but $2,000 moment allocated to Cope Bridge for the bollards. What are you going to do with the difference between $1,680 and $2,000?
Can I just ask a question? The Teen Junior Rugby Club, why was that declined? For me, it looks like a safety issue there, the pads for the golf course for the children.
So just through the chair, the club has, they have pads.
They do have
They have
pads.
pads, yeah.
So why were they reapplying for them?
But the pads are owned by the senior club, so they use their club pads. So it's just how that came out during the system. I mean, that's where they fell. Yeah.
So because, sorry, excuse me, so because the pads belong to the senior club, that means we can't fund the junior club to have pads?
It's not that,
Okay.
it's just how that came out in the system.
Oh, okay.
That wasn't part of it.
But that could be another one that we look at funding.
Well, I mean, as Sally had indicated, you can do this around it's a way.
Yeah.
This is being a nightmare.
Yeah.
I think you really need to review this whole criteria, if you're a little bit unhappy with it, but I think it's a great, they've done a decent job.
Yeah. It's not about that. It's something about, I have a problem with the Thames mountain bike getting 20 grand.
Yeah.
And then there's these children's ones that are missing out. That's my problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose.
And I don't share that. I would love to, be there in mountain bike club is a real.
And there would be families involved in that? Do families do mountain biking?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There'd be a lot of families going to the rugby club too.
Absolutely, and that's the question.
So through the chair, there's about, just a different, approximately, I can work it out in detail in a minute, but it's approximately $925 left to pay.
So,
Yeah.
already you have an application that doesn't have a public data, so I think we've got some resources then. These, they have been told that ready for one installation. Was it how much? $1,300 something dollars?
Yeah, but that's not related to this.
No.
That's a separate, that's the Dave Hogan sculpture.
Right.
That's not the separation. That's completely.
No, but you're looking at reallocating how much?
926.
What's everyone's suggestions in terms of how that might be reallocated?
Thames-Coromandel plot.
Yeah, that's cool. See, that's when we get into the dilemma,
What are you doing at the moment?
we're trying to find a way through this molasses. And if someone comes up with a good idea, I will shout them a very good lunch tomorrow.
We've got $926.50,
If we take
which is the reallocation from the Coco Bridge project to Tumble Tops, leaving $320 different, plus the $606.50 in retained.
Well, I'm with Sally, I'd be very happy, very comfortable doing that to Thames South School.
Okay. How does everyone feel with that? It's not a free application, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yep, okay.
Sorry, what's wrong with that?
In terms of the watch list?
Number 24. I would like to make a suggestion that maybe the Thames mountain bike get $5 less and that be allocated to one of the children's sports or whatever.
Well, I'm against that suggestion, but, you know.
Yeah, I mean, my thought around the mountain bike club is that for a start, it's not, that it's DCDC land, it's right, it's not road reserve.
Yes, it is.
So the work that they do on it, it's not just a, you know, a one-off thing for event or whatever. I mean, that work and that track stays there after it's done. And I think often for projects like that, just to be able to say, this fits in with so many, as Rosen pointed out, so many of our outcomes. What's the point in having outcomes that we try to make things up to, unless we can say, right, this fits with so many, give them the 20,000, there's a heap of volunteers that they have doing the work. Yeah, I think we should start watering that one down. Yeah, I would opposed to that.
Tell me the bikers are.
What's that?
You can tell me the bikers are.
Well, I don't know nothing about down the line.
Through the chair, the club needs to use that money, they're gonna leverage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's their aim, and that's the partnership project as well.
So if I were to say, everybody in the treasure trust didn't happen and the money went down to Thames South, say what to me, or what say you?
Okay, so if we have an adjustment relating to what we spoke about, it's residual money, and everybody goes to the Thames School. Does everyone have the
Thames South schools.
Sorry, which money that?
The residual money go to Thames South?
From the historic Oakley Road, we talk about. Yeah.
It's not
How
much.
much?
No, hang on, sorry. Cheryl was saying from the historic Oakley Bridge, you're saying residual.
I'm not saying that the Coakley Bridge funding is wiped out. And that,
Yeah,
top of the top, $1,680, there's a residual of $320 there, plus some unallocated funding, which is how much, 600 something dollars?
$926.
There's $926 to allocate still, and the decision is to allocate that to Thames South.
Okay, so just to leave it, the final element, I do want to register my support for the COVID Bridge. I mean, I'm involved with them in the lights and on the team here at the network, and I know they do a lot of money. It doesn't look like I'm supported amongst others, but I just want to put my support forward, so I don't agree with saying historic COVID Bridge out, but it looks like on the outlook, but that's okay, that's what we get.
And so, does anyone, you know, I'm in support of what Martin's saying too. In support of the old Coakley Bridge heritage.
You didn't just get criticism earlier for not supporting heritage things, so what I'm suggesting is if we don't agree with that everybody is a treasure trust, would there be some money there that we can work with rather than take it off the Koku Bridge?
Well, this is the trouble, we could go on and on and on and do it.
Can I just through the chair, we've got a youth strategy, and that is very much about initiative for you, supporting you, development of opportunities for youth. I spoke to the head of department at the high school. He was very supportive of this initiative. He thought it would be amazing that youth would have an opportunity to learn these skills and these techniques using technology. And I also spoke to Rebecca Thompson as well, and she was also very supportive of this initiative. Well, just as I tried to get background information on it.
Yep. And rangatahi mental health and welfare is a very important part of our world at the moment.
Okay, so we've got a resolution.
But can I just summarise where we're at? So where we're at is there's been a suggestion to provide grant funding to the tumble pot, which leaves a $320 difference if there's no grant to the Koku Bridge Society. And that leaves a total of $926.50, which has been proposed to allocate to 10 South School.
Right, we are moving on to that.
Yeah. And that means that all funding will be in.
Well, I want to test about Koku, so I'll second it and we'll see if people vote for it or against it. Yeah.
So, yep.
But what if I support the residual going to tumble pot, but I don't support the
Well, we passed that.
coming from Koku? Can we break it down separately? Can we just
Yeah.
vote on Koku first?
Yeah.
And then they just get it out of the way?
So I'll move that the grant be removed from the Koku Heritage Trust. Have I got a second? Sorry.
To keep the name different, because under 2, we have to be really careful with that one.
Oh, what's that one?
It's called Historic Koku Bridge Incorporated. Did you get that, Aaron?
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that I'm clear that you are moving Sally to decline that.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. And we've got Cherie as the seconder, and are you going to put the motion straight?
Yes, put the motion. Those in favour? Those against?
Thanks, Martin, I got that.
Okay, so straight, the next one is the proposal to allocate $926.50 to 10 South School, towards 10 South School. That's the $606.50 in retention, retained funds, plus the $320.
Yes,
Do you want to do tumble tots first, Rose?
Okay, so the proposal is that tumble pot be allocated grant funding of $1,680.
Yeah, fine, I think that.
So I got Cheryl to move and Robin second.
Rob, second, yeah. Those in favour, say aye. Aye. Raise your hands. Everyone seems to be in favour.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next one is a proposal to provide grant funding to 10 South School for $926.50.
Yes.
Those in favour?
But somebody needs to propose.
Yeah, I'll do it.
I'll speak with you.
Right, and those in favour of that?
So is there a brief chance for discussion on that?
Yes,
Yeah.
it needs to be. It's just like my page.
Yeah, I mean, it does sort of seem to me that we're considering that. I mean, like Sally said, I don't know, we don't want to get into that, let's take 1,000 off this and 1,000 off that, do we? I don't know.
So through the chair, one comment is they will have some funding for a couple of initiatives. If you look at the costing here, There is about the carpet for 450, rock climbing 850, so they'll have choices.
Yeah.
They could probably choose two of them.
That's one. Yeah, I think I could probably find them myself to support the Great Britain Bounty Council that they have. That's good to me.
Sorry, Martin, Gary.
No, it's not.
Bloody Monday.
So, I mean, it gets back to, you know, looking at straws for the sort of criteria for projects before, you have to have been happy with the original recommendations, but if all moving together with the board in terms of just some areas that we feel are important, I think that's okay too. So I think we're getting there, and there is an expression of the
That's
$926 being reallocated to Thames South. I've got no issue with that. And I'd like to put a motion forward to reiterate that. If I move in a second, I think we did have a mover a second.
We did have a mover. It was Robin and Cherie.
Those in favour, just raise your hands. Those against? Fine. Is that all right, everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got all that reallocation right. And then do we need an overall mover and seconder for the total allocation now?
Yeah, I think that would be good, please, just so we've made sure that we've approved all applications and the ones that have been declined are declined. So we have that.
Thank you. I'm going for a seconder for that. Thanks, Cheryl. Second, Martin. All in favour? Raise your hand. Against? Thank you very much, everybody. Well done.
So just bear in mind, through the chair, that means that the staff recommendation for clause 4 to retain, obviously, that clause will be removed because that's part of the money that will be going to the Thames South School.
That's correct, thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Did everyone want to break for lunch now, or do you want to finish with 2.3 and then we'll have lunch?
Yeah, it's going to go to.
2.3.
Yeah.
Yeah, and through the chair, we do have staff that have been waiting very patiently online. So if we could just get through their items, that would be great.
Right, so let's delay them.
Remember, two members, this is the duck out for a minute. There'll only be 1 minute.
5-minute break.
Does anyone want to break?
Still got the floor.
We do, yeah.
Still got the floor.
Carry on.
So we're on page 44 now.
So we're doing item 3.3.
Yes.
Page 44.
Yep. Page 44. Right, would you like to present it?
Item 2.3 today is the Thames Community Water Facility Operational Grant. Allocation of funding in 21-22 to 23-24, so it's a 3-year period. The purpose of this report is to allocate grant for facility operation to groups that provide community facilities and all services. Previously, grants have been used to contribute to the general operational costs. I'll just go through the group. So the Treasury, the Thames School of Mines, Citizens Advice Bureau and Thames Youth Centre, or assist community groups with the cost of their facility maintenance or maintain a community water tanker at any structure associated with it, and tapu and brewery. Yeah. Option 1 today is to renew the funding agreement. So 13 groups were granted funding previously in 2018, and I have started visiting those groups. I've been to the Thames Museum, to the Bella Street Comcast meeting. Well, we ended up having a phone discussion. We were supposed to meet, but it was during lockdown, so that didn't go ahead. And the Treasury. So the Thames Youth Centre has also been visited by myself.
Okay, we're doing, those board members that were just out for a minute, we're doing 2.3 and this hearing rather than introduction to.
So you see in the report a list of grant recipients previously, there's 13 of them. The option one today is to renew the funding agreements for the 13 groups. And option two is not to renew the funding agreement.
Have we got a mover and second for the suggested resolution?
I'd like to move it, to have one point before I move it.
Sure.
I just think that is this part also of these are operational grants, but they're part of a grant review. So I'm wondering, I would move the motion if we adjusted number 2 to a 2-year period, not a 3, because I think it'll take us 2 years to review this whole thing about what we're going to do about grants. And so I'm not very good at standing orders, so I would like to, I don't know if I can move a motion now, which changes number 2 to grants funds from 21-22 to 22-23. So they've got 2 years funding, not 3, in case we want to change it. Am I allowed to do that?
You can suggest an amendment.
Yes,
Right.
you
Do
can.
I have to put the original motion first and move it?
You can put that motion right now if you like.
So I'll move that we receive the number 1 stays, number 2 changes to grant fund from 2021-22 to 22-23 to the following groups, which gives them 2 years of certainty, not 3, and that this is part of our overall review of grants and etc. So I'll move that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Kelly's made a very good point.
Sorry, I didn't catch who seconds that.
We haven't got one yet.
I'll sing that.
Not we have.
Now we'll discuss that.
Conflict in terms of you and the current law?
Oh.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
You're second, you're right. So is everyone hearing what's being said? We are aligning the period of grant to our review program, so that's not out of filter in terms of what's being done from a council perspective. Right. So I've got no problem with that.
So through the chair, the timeline for the review of these non-contestable grants hasn't been firmed up yet. But we will be able to do that soon. And I can't, yeah, I mean, it seems like 2 years would be long enough to conduct that process, which includes finalising criteria to assess against and then having a fair and equitable process for groups to apply.
So what are you saying?
So it feels like it should be long enough, 2 years.
So you're agreeing with my amendment or not?
Can you do that?
The other group, which is a contestable process, that's a 3, we're planning to do that over, before the next LTP. That's why I reckon there's a 3 years, so we'll get it done before the next LTP process, so that when we draft up our draft LTP, the outcome of this review is in there.
Right. So can I question?
Yes.
So this is a different review than what we painfully talked about in 2.1 and 2.2.
They're separate.
And why are they separate?
They're separate because one group has specific, the funds are used for a specific purpose. So it's either operational grant funding for maintenance.
Okay.
As per the report, the 3 reasons, the 2 water tankers, yeah.
It's like,
Keep them in the same time frame, because then we can do them together.
Because I'm thinking that the discretionary funded stuff whether we can do that solo as a community board, because all of the community boards have the same thing. So, and, you know, I just, the number of times I've heard by the next LTP, and they come very fast. So anyway, so what you're saying, oh, sorry.
No, Donna, we're going to need that.
So these are the grant that budgets are allocated during the long-term plan. Yeah.
So the top, yeah.
Right, okay.
I think that's
Okay, so my first resolution
I don't probably just need to step with that because it's budget allocated for those 3 years. In the long-term plan.
But thanks for the raising.
That should align with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm removing.
That's all right. That's a good question, thanks. Just pondering it as well when it was done. Peter?
I think Cherie,
Give you a go, right?
Okay, so what I'd like to ask is that number 5, the Coromandel Heritage Trust, be deferred until they install a new board, until they do what it is they told us when they came at the beginning of the year. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be giving them, I'm just saying that in principle we could approve, but we should be looking into them.
Okay, well, who's going to speak to that?
Good Chair. One possibility is to have the word subject to in the resolution, and you, if there's something you want to add in there. Subject to them doing what?
Well, when they came at the beginning, they were going to have a new sign up, but it's not been up since the beginning of the year. Question is how many volunteers have they got? Because volunteers are moving out of there at a great rate of knots. They're supposed to build and maintain the membership. I don't know how much members are here. Their online sales haven't been particularly high. We don't know what the membership fee is and what is it. Recruiting and keeping volunteers has got to be at the top of their list, and at the moment they're not keeping their staff, let alone their volunteers. So this is my thoughts. If the board can't keep these things in order, how are we going to keep them? How on earth can we keep funding?
I have a counter information to that. I'm not going to discuss it here. And
why not?
Because I've heard those same accusations. I've read an email back from the chair saying different things, and so it's who said this, who doesn't say that, and so to me the way to cover it would be subject to the Heritage Trust presenting X, Y, and Z or something like that.
So setting KPIs is operational.
Yeah.
And that's what Leslie and I will work on. But if there's something specific that you would like them to do, you could put that in. You know, if you wanted them to,
I want them to meet their KPIs as I do whatever the youth centre is meant to do and whatever this, you know, all of them.
so are you saying at the end of year 1, we check and they've met all the KPIs?
Yeah, that would be really good.
Which is sort of May.
I think I mean, especially by the funding agreements that we're getting, but the funding agreements are in line or alignment with what council's providing as a council versus what they expect from the Thames Community Board to provide in terms of them agreeing to provide their amount of funding, which is equal to we are providing for the next 3 years and that are being planned. So we are Thames Community Board pivotal the granting process, and we're going to withhold what's been suggested in this resolution. There are very good reasons to withhold it. And there might be some validity in what you're saying, validity in what study is saying, and I've heard some issues that are contrary to what Cherie's saying. And so you know, at the end of the day, I'm happy for the suggested solution to move forward in good faith. It's in terms of the information we might have. And I don't think there should be any reason for this board not to do that. That's my personal view. So I think it's very important that in fact we rest board would pay and those recommendations. I'm sort of. I'm not sure if we have a move to suggest the resolution or want to go.
Through the chair, to clarify, the council has granted $30,000 this year to Thames-Coromandel District Council, and this resolution is separate.
Yeah,
So there's a district function
yes,
and there's a community area
and there's the Hauraki district.
and the
function.
Hauraki district grant as well.
Exactly right.
And I know, yeah, there is a strategic plan which they have submitted, and there are some objectives in there. And Leslie and I have been working on how we can move towards, move in a direction so that they're less dependent on grant funding.
Just on, issues relating to treasury and personality. Not for us, our board to try to clarify those issues. In principle, we've got, this funding agreement with them. And I think we should be moving forward with that as a good go. So,
I guess, just a comment, if there is something specific that you strongly feel about, like the volunteers, if you strongly feel that's top of their priority, then we can certainly take that.
Into KPIs, but it's.
Yeah, but it needs to come from you, not me.
yeah, I agree with that.
I just had a couple of points I threw to that. So, in the funding agreement that we enter into with these organisations, and I know about those because of earlier involvement which have come on the board side, those funding agreements, Sally, I think already have particular requirements.
Yes,
So each year, the organisations are supposed to present to council saying, right, here's our, the basis of our monthly profit and loss, that sort of thing. So we already have those organisations that are sending that information in anyway. But if we were going to say that we really want to check their KPIs, I think would be, well, we do need to warn them. But there may be some groups in that list that just get the money, use it for good things, but have never had council follow up. No, that's always. What's that? So you say
So
that.
what we're talking about is, for example, the brewery water supply. Tanker. So that's 3,400. That'd be quite small amount. Some of them are 2,000.
yes, some of
This
the.
is just one that is higher. It's usually. So if you go through the list, some of them are 818 for the citizens advice. Now,
Well, that was going to be another point, but so I just want to check. So Rose, you're saying that a lot of these organisations don't send in facts here saying.
they send back a written report.
Oh, they do. Okay, right.
But they don't come along, my understanding, they don't come along for the interview.
Yeah.
They are required to submit a report.
And we have a delegated person on the community board.
Sorry, can I just make one more point? And then I'll be quiet. The 818 for Citizens Advice Bureau, is that enough for them?
Well, the LTP, they didn't apply for any more. So they don't even know sometimes that, I don't think, that their fund is connected to the LTP. Because I lay awake worrying about whether these people were going to be covered because they hadn't reapplied in the LTP. Some people did, others didn't. And so to me, that's what we're trying to sort out. And a lot of them are in our building.
Okay. Is that all right, everyone? Sheree?
Sorry, can I just go back about the Treasury
Yep.
2010 and then look down the list and see that the museum's getting 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. Bella Street 2000, Heritage 2000. So did we not just hear today from Anthea about the uneven?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Althea, that Heritage Trust did not ask at the LTP for anything more. Whereas the Treasury came and presented and did a particular submission and it was voted on. And so I think that, and that's why the reduction of time, which is annoying for the LTP, I'm confused now about, I think we probably need to go back. It's how do you, so they didn't ask for any more.
I know.
They want more.
They've been in many times, so every time I've been to a board meeting,
Yeah, but
that's here.
Yeah, but they haven't said, we want to do X, Y, and Z, this is our plan, we need 100,000 bucks, we're going to get 50 from here, 10 from there, and so that's where they need the help.
So can you tell me then that the Treasury has done everything that they said they would do when they came at the beginning of this year in order to get that money? Which is the plan.
Well, and that's the operational. There would have been an agreement and they'll either have met it or not. And operations will either give them the money or not. It's not our job to clear around what's going on and what's not.
So we are able to do payment.
Yes, and one of the KPIs of the Treasury will be that so they do need to submit a report and that will be reported to the council formally. The best normal report.
Okay.
And I don't know if it has in the past, I don't think it has.
Thank you very much for the discussion. We'd like to get the resolution. Over a second.
So do I need to remove mine? Because I changed the dates and we've had advice that we should go back to the original to match it. So do I remove mine?
If you want to change that, Sally, you can. So you can amend your own motion.
So I'll amend it to go back to grant fund from 21-22 back to 23-24, so it aligns with the next LTP. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Sally. Second.
Yeah.
Those in favour, raise your hands. Against?
Did anyone vote against? I did not see.
Abstain. Sheree, abstain.
Therese abstain. Okay, thank you.
That's fine. That's good. So now we've got 3.1. Would everyone like to just continue for a little while?
Yeah.
3.1, leases and assets. We'll take it as being read. Nicole?
Good morning, everybody.
Hi,
Or good afternoon, sorry.
Nice to see you.
You too. Are there any questions? Otherwise, I can provide a summary.
Are there any questions from the board? It's reasonably straightforward for me.
I just had a question regarding does it set, is it possible that it's setting some kind of precedent that we don't want to set?
Setting a precedent as in changing the classification?
Yeah.
No, we need to change the classification in order to formally enter into a lease agreement with them. So it's not, I wouldn't call it a precedent. It's
Okay, thank you.
something we must do. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I'll move.
Yeah, second, Sheree. So move. Sally, second, Sheree. All in favour? Everybody?
Great. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
4.1. I'm just getting a bit tired now, sorry. After all that grants discussion. 4.1, right of easement across council-owned land. 1 year road to Marta. James about roading engineer.
Yes, yeah. Good morning, everybody.
How are you, James?
I'm good. Yep, working from home.
Yep. If you'd like to speak to.
Sweet. It's essentially just a because the driveway, the contractors have identified that The existing driveway does cross over some council-owned land, so just moving forward, we would like to get some approval from the board so that a proper driveway can be formed, essentially.
Right. Thank you. It seems quite pragmatic.
Yes.
It's from the board.
Yes, that's correct.
No questions from the board? So there's a suggested resolution. Is anyone? Yes?
I'll move it.
You'll move it. I've got a second. No?
I do have a question.
Yes, okay.
Is there a requirement here for a lease to occupy?
A license to occupy.
License to occupy. Yeah.
Not sure. I thought this was the procedure, correct procedure. We just needed a right of easement. I think that was determined by the legal team.
Through the chair, generally, like license to occupy, we use that for the structure on the land.
Yes.
It's going to be a driveway, it's more just a passage over it, the easement. It's a good question. Because we use license to occupy and easements interchangeably a little bit, but that's example of easement simple. Thank you.
Okay, as per the advice.
Thanks for clarifying that, Bruce.
Okay, so the resolution stands as it is. A mover and seconder. We had a mover.
I'll see.
Yep, thank you. Martin, you moved it, didn't you?
I did.
Oh, you did. So it's Martin, Peter. All in favour? Aye. Against? 0. Pretty good.
Thanks.
Thanks, James.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you got a cosy spot there, have you?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Take it in. Yes.
Thank you.
Thames work program. Again, take it as being read and Bruce, like to highlight anything?
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, board. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Our reporting deadline being that, as you'll see at the top, this is the 31st of July. So we've got there's always got a lag on the information coming through. You have to get the reports through by a certain date to hit the agenda and stuff. So I anticipate that you'll see quite a change when we get to the next meeting. It's just our 6 weekly meeting schedule. Thanks with whatever we're doing here on month end as far as expenditure. So that's why this seems like a bit of a lifetime ago, but it is what it is. Happy to take any questions. Obviously, the COVID lockdown is having a bit of an impact in a number of areas, but obviously Andrew Bowden and the room, this team are doing what they can to keep moving forwards with their projects. But there's been a bit of a challenge with some contracts and suppliers. And we'll just keep the pressure on that space, and we'll be updating elected members through the year if we have any issues and problems associated with those lockdowns and supply and materials. Happy to take any questions.
I'll just kick it off with the Totra. Totra Valley extensions. I've been gutted to see stage 3 not until June 2024.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into a little bit more detail later on about the Totra Valley one and give you a lot more background around that. I've just got Andrew Bowden in the room. Yeah, it is. These things do take a lot longer than what we'd like. Is there anything you want to add to that, Andrew? In the back?
Workshop, isn't it?
You put it to land long term will take some time. There's slitters of land that need to go through the public works act, and that's a lengthy process. It started work, but it's definitely going to an impact on the problem.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right. Okay. I mean, it's such an important project for us, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the team are working hard to progress it in the best way they can. But
Yep.
I just don't want unnecessary delay if possible.
No, none of us want that. It has been coming for decades now, this project, so we totally understand the keenness to get over the line straight.
Very much so. Any other questions?
Yeah. So, I just wonder, is it appropriate if there was a Tokyo Marine project?
Yes.
And I'm looking across Sally, as, council last week, we got an update on that.
I was going to talk about that at the members' reports, but we could do it now. Yeah.
No, we can do with that.
So, just an update for the board, like the tender. So we need to do the whole project, we need more funding, about 1.3 or 1.8, one or the other. That request has gone back to NB. There is, and that's still in negotiation, and there is the reality of a budget and what we can do. The thing that would be deferred or go would be the recreational side of it. Obviously, no one wants that. So negotiations with government, and then if that wasn't the case, well, then on we go with reviewing the project. So
Thanks, Sally.
that's the, and Andrew.
Through the chair, that is true, and we'll only know from Andrew once the consent from the EPA has come through, which is going to be November, December. So when that consent is approved, and we're confident it will be, only then will Andrew decide whether they give us some more money or not.
So are we working proactively to work with the alternative worst case scenario, which is if we don't get the money from NPS, the importance of completing this project, both the recreational and commercial aspect of it. And we were councillors of the mind to bite the bullet a little bit to find that $1.9 million we had to complete the project, because I think it would be a disaster, absolute disaster, if in fact, the recreational facility was deferred and the whole project wasn't completed as it would like to be completed.
Yeah, through the chair, what I'd say to that is I don't think anyone disagrees with you, Mr. Chair, about getting that project over the line. What I would say is, picking up on what Councillor Christie and Andrew Bowden said, is we're still busy trying to secure the additional funding with EB, the project team are. So yeah, so at this stage, I think that's the right avenue to continue down that approach.
So would there be, is there been a discussion at strategic level? Sort of say, well, if this money doesn't get approved, are we going to be looking at our budget cycle?
I think that's a work in progress, and where that would land is an open discussion.
Yeah.
And certainly, sitting around the table, will be strongly advocating, and there are other opinions in the room.
Yeah. Thanks.
About local versus district funding.
Okay.
Yes.
Martin?
And I mean, I think this has come about with the fact that, and my numbers might be slightly out, but come up with better numbers, but the client in NIMBY for this amount.
Which is about what we need.
And NIMBY said, oh, you can have this much. And in the meantime, costs have increased. So the money that they said, oh yes, you can have blah, 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 is not going to do that, which is what we originally asked for. So it's highly frustrating. It's like, well, you just give us the money we asked for in the first place, we'll be all right.
And
is that roughly correct, Bruce?
Yep, that is roughly correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Is there any opportunity to talk to anyone?
Well, I think that at the moment we're going for NB, and then I think if they said no, well, then everything would be on the table. Yeah.
No, thank you. A big cost increases here. You're saying that the deal.
Yeah, so through the chair.
Mainly.
Yep, across all projects, we're seeing that, obviously, and you're seeing it in the media and stuff, with house building, and everyone talking about the price of building materials and steel and everything jumping up. So again, we just, Andrew's team do a good job of trying to manage those issues and just do what we can to try and bring things in on budget.
Through the chair, steel, increases in steel are phenomenal at the moment, and that's rooted through China, they make a mistake, but they're now starting to use more of their own manufactured product themselves. And hence, there's a shortage, and hence the price goes up. So that is a worldwide issue, not restricted to New Zealand, it's the whole world. So I mean, we are finding and I'll talk to it later, the workshop, that some materials like pipework is also in short supply. So there are many challenges on different fronts at the moment.
And for example, one of the challenges is that, if I heard rightly, that we can't buy the steel ahead of time at the cost now until we've got the resource consent. So is that true?
Through the chair, yes, that is the case. The most important thing is the consent.
Yes.
The EPA consent. Nothing else is important, as important as getting that. And as soon as we get that, then it unlocks the project, really.
So what are the obvious frustrations related to the resource consent council? Or?
I'm not directly involved with that, but I think it's going through the fast track process. And it is hopefully November.
Through the COVID-19 process now. It's been submitted and acknowledged, receipt, but there's a statutory time period when they have to review it, and they have a panel of people who will decide whether it's okay or not. But the consent is the most important element. So without the consent, there's no project. Simple, no project. No. So that's been the focus of the design team, is to get all those documentation and environmental report. And along the way, the government has imposed some wetland requirements on us, which has delayed the process and involved more costs as well. So I won't bore you with the details, but the consent is absolutely pivotal to this project going ahead.
I'm sure it is. Okay, I mean, fast track means something to some, fast track means something else to others.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was very hard in their group, and they're good luck. It's all good. Martin?
Right, so moving on from the open ring, I just had a query about the library books.
Yes.
And one of the 2 points there is improved purchasing arrangements currently being implemented. Are you able to speak to that?
Yeah, I can elaborate on that a little bit. So Anya, our new library manager, has obviously, when someone new comes in, and are there improvements that can be made. It looks like the way the library books used to be purchased was quite a manual process, as far as the previous manager would sit there and work out what books, through requests and stuff, would come up with a list and then go through and individually order those books, as order. What Anya's looking at from, I think it's from Wheelers, the main people who buy books, most libraries buy books from New Zealand. So I think what Anya's looking at is Wheelers offer a service to majority of the other national libraries in the country, where they actually come up with a suggested list of books based on what's coming out, their knowledge in the library space and stuff. So they'll actually do a lot of that work for you. You then review and approve the list or add or take this away, which I think is a much quicker and more streamlined way of doing it. Because there's also the delay on books. There's always a delay on books, but obviously even now with COVID, we've got even more of a delay. So if you've kind of got a more streamlined process that's coming from the supplier, that can really help them. So yeah, so that's what it's all.
Okay, so I guess a follow-up to that was, obviously we're all being told to, buy local and New Zealand made things and that, but I wondered what council procurement policy is around doing things local. Well, obviously it's complicated because there's some things that we're just too small to have
It is complicated, the local thing. We talk about this around procurement for a number of different areas. You're right around, if you say local procurement, if we do consider local procurement, definitely it does come into our evaluation, but it's hard to put a quantitative thing on it, because again, I've probably given you examples before, if you say like a local, so move from library books to like other work, if you say we want to use like a local contractor, and you decide if they're local. So there are different levels of local. They can have, everyone lives here, you know, and works here. A step away from that is that you have some people live here and some people, you know, based in town. Step away is that, you know, they've got a couple of people here and everyone else is they've got a phone number and team, you know what I mean? And so it's it does get pretty tricky to work out how you actually put into action. There's no disagreement, everyone wants the same thing. You want to be able to provide local employment and try and, you know, local purchase and so no one's against that. It's just how you actually do it. As soon as you put that process in place, suppliers and contractors will come up with ways to game the system a little bit and suddenly you're not achieving what you were achieving. So it is tricky. Wheelers, I think, like I say, from my understanding, I wasn't specialist at all, but from my understanding, they're the main people that people buy the books from, maybe all the contacts across international contacts, to bring all the books and stuff. So,
Yeah,
and again,
it's really important that you take the advice of the library manager.
Totally, only knows
As a local aspect.
Yep.
And I'll be a bit afraid if the National Library, is governing that in any capacity because, you know, I think it could lose its content to some extent. In terms of what's provided for the library, where in fact it ends up being more historical books or whatever, you know.
Tanya's over, I hear what you're saying. Tanya's over the top of that. And again, it's the process that's still in there that, you know, if a number of people request a book, that goes into consideration. So we haven't lost any of that. So Tanya is very focused on the library, as you guys know, and very focused on the community and doing a good job for the Thames community area, port area. So I think, you know, I'm pretty sure that
together, I think it's good.
Safe fair opinion of the wheel.
Any other aspects? Is that right? Everything else, everyone? It's all good?
I'll move that we receive the community board week program.
Thanks. Cheryl, seconder. Sally moved it. And
Thank you.
Favour? Oh, hi, Ariana, you're still there.
I sure am.
You're not going to go very far, are you? Everyone in favour? None against? Thank you. Thank you. Anything scheduled? Looks like we completed, we've just done that lunch and workshop. Yep. Ariana, are you able to take us through this?
Yeah, sure. I'll just take it as read, but I do have Bruce may be able to help me with a few questions if you have any. Thanks, Bruce.
Yep. Thank you.
I'll just remind everyone that I did send out these actions and responses. I think it was in the first week of COVID. So I have received no other updates since then.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. All right, everyone read what's there. Bruce, have you got any additional comments you'd like to make?
No, yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. With REC, we can try and engage with the REC team, and my team, generally the majority of my team, trying to get actions out quicker after the board meetings. Yeah, so that's, like I mentioned, getting stuff information out there while it's pretty slow. We're going to keep trying to do that as well as having a caption in this form way as well.
Thank you very much. See that we're moving quite well on the program because in the Untitled. Yeah, that's good. Any other questions? No. Mover and second. Oh, yes.
Just around the reserve that Wyoming and the naming of that reserve. So I see that it's closed, but actually, is it closed? Because I understand if the regional council doesn't have a policy around naming reserves.
I don't know, sorry, I have to go away and find out that, yeah, I'm not sure.
I think it's really important if we're considering naming reserves, and we've had somebody in our public forum that made a submission relating to just making sure we get our history right, those sort of aspects. So it will be good if the board can actually receive some sort of report on just what the program is followed, so all that is really expected.
So just to clarify, we have a reserve management plan document, and it's really about the council's process in terms of naming.
Right.
So what,
But so
what,
it's not the council that's going to name it, it's because it's not actually owned by the council, from my understanding, it's by the regional council, and what the regional council doesn't have a document about naming reserve. They have documents about naming other things, but the reserve not. So they are talking, what I know is the talk is maybe they need to.
so I guess that's outside of the scope of what we have to go to. We're not going to take into it.
I understand that, yeah. You've got to start somewhere.
So through the chair, I think the comment, if I'm correct, the comment that we've got on there, on the forestry, still waiting to get that, so, so I think we'll start that, as it's your own. Yeah, the art question, not our reserve, but, we can keep the name. And what the process is.
Well, I think the board will be very interested in what that process is.
As well.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll update the board as soon as we get that, around that and the process of the regional council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, so Ari, did you get that for our action schedule? Sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I actually cannot hear that bit.
So the action is that Bruce is going to provide an update on the approach that Waikato Regional Council takes for naming and reserves.
Particularly Wyoming domain.
And in particular, the campground, the old campground reserve at Wyoming.
Okay,
You got that, Ariana?
yes, thank you.
Very good. So there's a movement secretary report. It's up to receive the action schedule.
So, can I just ask one question?
Yeah.
The Thornton Bay culvert, thingy. So the, action point was around residents being, the residents be updated. And I think we're being updated, the site that I think staff said, well, they prefer to leave and watch it without the residents. But have the residents now been, have been updated about what's going to happen there?
Chair, I'm not sure if anyone's gone back to the residents, I don't think we've got, I think we've got that list of residents' names that they need to go back to, I'm not sure, I can't, actually look off the top of my head, apologies.
Yeah, I think the Joneses were the main people because they should have been involved.
Yeah, I'll follow up with the team to make sure anyone who's contact details has got originally raised it, to make sure they can, I think we'll know what's going on.
Cool, thank you very much.
I'll move the action. Thank you, Sally.
Awesome.
Lovely, thank you. You'll be right now. So we'll move on to members' reports. We'll start at nominee.
Okay, so my report, which I'll speak about, the only thing I would want to add to that is just with regards to airfield, we're going to have an update in the workshop a bit later, but the main runway is closed for 33 days this winter owing to sogginess on the main runway. Last year, it wasn't closed at all. So after we've done the drainage, runway performed perfect, was available 100% of the time last year. So that's the main runway, the one that runs north to south. the east-west runway was available this winter, but the main one wasn't. And I guess the only comment I would reinforce in my report is that I think aspirationally, we think this airport could be really a huge asset to our district, but it will be dependent on ending up with a main runway, which is serviceable 24/7. And any business that we might want to attract to the airfield will be wanting a fully sealed runway. So it's just an observation I would just make at this point. Apart from that, everything else was not.
A lot of energy at the moment around the three waters. I'm not sure if you're getting a lot of community. So as a council that's been fully discussed with us, there's a report that goes back to the government at the end of our feedback at the end of this month, which is very soon. Our council has not opted in or out like some councils have. That is not what we stage that we're at this point in time. Lots of questions. And the only other thing I'd like to publicly say is that people that are very clear that we should stay out need to remember that they're not voting about staying the same for this, that the same will change due to different standards and a new board of regulator and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see where it ends up, but we're in a process. That's what I would like to say. And as a council, we've got a lot of questions, and on the process we go.
Thanks, Ellie. Sure.
We have to members report, yeah. Okay, so, yeah, I went down and saw Jamie, and here on Monday. And I guess from our conversation, it would be correct to just, tell where it's been put on the action schedule. Yeah, okay, so that's what I'll report to you about that. The other thing is, I've been talking to Rose and Strat about the community board's support for an application to the Age Friendly Fund. I'm not quite sure how much that would be at the moment, but it's to contract a website designer to do a discrete piece of work, which is developing a website that will bring all the agencies that provide services to Thames. Yeah, so we're just going down that track at the moment, and I've got a meeting with Ministry of Social Development tomorrow, along with St John and Aged Concealing. So I'll let you know how we get on with that. And that's about it really, except to say that I had it in my diary for Monday, Kobu Marine Shuttle event. That was supposed to be happening, and I wasn't advised to.
Yeah, Lisa sent an email last week that that's postponed until 8 October. What time?
8 October, yeah, okay, I must have missed that email. Thank goodness, Martin told me about it. Otherwise I would have tuned up there all by myself.
End up there with the shovel all ready to go.
So that's it from me.
You could have one, would love to see that. I passed on some information from Helen Moran to a cousin of mine that got an Australian Order of Merit who work in some capacity in other areas as well as the one you're mentioning. And she worked from Waverton in Sydney, a suburb of Sydney, and set up, a membership for the elderly and involved all sorts of things. So I don't think we can some of that material.
Yes, thanks, Brad. Yeah.
So I just hope it's helpful, and I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
Good. We're up to that.
Nice like that.
Yes, so just looking back at my calendar over the last month, I guess the first thing I want to just acknowledge was the huge disappointment that lockdown happened when it did as far as the career expo. It was due to happen, which is now the second year in a row. And not just the TBA, but council staff and all sorts of people and all the ITOs and the schools, they were due to bust Yeah, for 700 students in that day. And yeah, I was just really gutted. And I think some acknowledgement went out to people who have helped with that. Doesn't come to council meeting?
Not sure.
Not sure. Yeah, so yeah, because of lockdown, and Sally's already talked about the Three Waters, and so there's been lots of online expos, online webinars and meetings and things. It got to the point a couple of days ago, I was in a regional council connections meeting online, and lots of interesting things about public transport. And then it got to the end of the meeting, and the chair said, and there's some, you know, for those attending the meeting, there's some food available. And I swear for about 3 or 4 seconds, I was looking forward to that food before the realisation crept in that, in fact, I wasn't going to get any food. So clearly, lockdown is affecting some people more than others. And that's how it's been affecting me. And yes, that's about all, really.
No, thanks, Mark. Yes. Ron, you've had a...
So I've had a very close family bereavement in the last week. But the flip side of that is I've had quite a lot of people come from around the country to visit me and pass on their condolences, and we were entirely grateful to the staff who dug my husband's grave on Sunday, the day that they don't normally work, and I was able to receive quite a lot of really positive comments about how nice our town looks, the quality of the main streets, and on the whole, much as we would have liked to have not been there at any stage anyway, the natural burial site is looking really lovely, and it's a really lovely place to be able to gather. And so I know that was partly a community initiative and that it was support for council, and I'm very grateful that it is a place that exists. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you. It really is.
So I don't have much to report apart from Tim's 150th anniversary, which was amazing.
Yeah.
I have to say that the dinner was quite cool, Sally was there, and it is quite neat to see some of those sport legends letting out their, you know, their information and talking about what they've done, how they get there, what that means, what that jersey means to them, and how they get it. So that was really quite a cool thing to actually be a part of. I don't have much else except to say that for a period of time there, there's been a little bit of an issue up at Tipuru with the bollards on the river, and after Martin and I did some long discussions with people up there, and that the bollards have now turned into a Forestry Gate. There is a access walkway, and the gate is not locked, and but we don't want anybody to know that.
Well, it's just recorded on the public meeting.
But it might be locked at some stage.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the members' report. I haven't had a chance to write one, and I haven't got anything that stands out. Should be a good still showing on. And looking after my granddaughter during lockdown, that's kept us busy with her applications. That was covered. So, mover and seconder. Members' report. Peter. Peter has moved it. Cheryl has seconded. Ariana.
And I've moved that we move to exclude the public for the next one.
Thank you. The seconder for that. So, Ariana, are we on?
Yep, I'll just stop the recording.
Yep.